Hi everyone, this is Jim. Welcome to this postmortem of my Blitz game number 624. I had the white pieces and started off with e4. My opponent played e5. Went with knight f3, knight c6, so we get into the Ruy Lopez after I play the move bishop to b5, one of the most main line of all openings. My opponent goes a6, keeping with the main line. There's Morphy defense. I go bishop a4, now knight f6. He comes out with knight f6 rather, attacking the center, and then a typical move in the Ruy, I castle and ignore the attack on the e-pawn. It turns out that in most lines, white gets that pawn back if black takes it, although that is a move here black can take, and that leads to the open Ruy Lopez. But he plays the a different line. The main line closed to Ruy Lopez is bishop e7, but he goes with the immediate bishop to c5. And well, this is an interesting way to play. Now I can play the knight fork trick here, and I think this turns out okay for white, so I guess this is a reasonable way to play. I just wanted to point out that what I play here in this position, I play the move b5 immediately. So if we go back to the opening book, you can see that that is a move there, b5. But and the idea is to prepare bishop c5. So just to show this again, b5, he kicks the bishop back to b3. We can still look at this on the opening page, and then bishop c5. There are other ways to proceed, but just b5 is a way to prepare bishop c5. And now if white goes for the center fork trick, you get enough play here after these exchanges. The pawn comes forward to fork the two pieces and get the piece back. You trade off on d5, and then you play the key move here is d6, which defends the knight, and it threatens c5 and then c4, trapping the bishop, and it forces some kind of response from white, either c3, providing an escape square for the bishop, or f4, counterattacking in the center. So anyway, black is should be okay in these positions. It is a position where it's about equal. So let's back up to the game, though. He played bishop c5 immediately, and so I just went for the center fork trick here. Knight takes e5. And now the point is, if he tries this b5 move at this point, then I don't have to retreat the bishop right away. I can throw in knight takes c6 and then retreat the bishop. So this turns out to be okay for white. So it doesn't just transpose back into the same position, but it's a different position where I managed to damage black's pawn structure a little bit. So so he has to take the knight back right away, and then d4 with the fork. And then he plays a very interesting move, knight to e4. Let's look in the opening book. Knight takes e4 is the top move. You could try b5 at this point. But you have to remember how to play these things. After knight takes e4, this idea is actually common in other lines as well. So if you've played a number of these positions, it should come to you pretty naturally. You need to put something on the e-file to take advantage of the lineup of pieces there and get your material back that way, rather than grabbing a piece with a pawn. That's just not as good. Your pawn is going to be weak there. And it'll also close off the e-file if you grab the knight, and if you grab the bishop, then he can grab the pawn back. So putting something on the e-file and getting your piece back that way is the best way to play this. So rook e1 is okay. He goes bishop back to e7, just so that when I take the knight, it's not with check, and I'm not winning a second piece. Now he has time to retreat the knight. So I was improvising for quite a few moves here. It's interesting that we're still in the opening book, although we've gotten down to a fairly small number of games. He continues with, I continue with c4. I mean, these kind of logical moves. He castles, and I develop my knight to c3. And I'm doing okay so far. And now he goes c6, and we're finally out of the opening book at this point. And so this is where I start to make mistakes. At this point, the computer gives the advantage to white. This rook is going to need to be repositioned. It's not really stable there. So I will have to spend some time organizing my forces. But if you look at black's position, he's also got to develop his bishop still. And then my pieces are pretty actively placed, and I have a little more center control. So slight edge to white in this position. But my game starts to go downhill with my very next move, bishop to d2, which is, to me, it seemed like a natural developing move to get the bishop off the back rank and open up the square c1 for my rook. That was what I was thinking. But there's more pressing concerns in this position. Actually, this move b5 is kind of annoying. It's going to kick the bishop and then kick my knight. And so just moving the bishop back with bishop to c2 is actually a recommended move here. d5 takes, and then dropping the rook back to e1. And white is still just fine in this position with the slight edge. And, this bishop, as often in the Ruy Lopez, actually, this bishop can sit here on c1 for a long time. So I was really just developing that bishop prematurely. I didn't have a clear idea of where it was going. I just placed it somewhere off the back rank where it wouldn't get in any trouble so I could open up a square for my rook, but that wasn't the most pressing concern in the position. Another way to play it a little more aggressively is with d5. It's another chess engine suggestion. And then when he counterattacks, cancel that. When he counterattacks with b5, drop the bishop back, and then maybe bishop to f6, and pushing on with c5 and just trying to open things up here quickly, or push on with d6 if black allows it and clamp down on the position. So interesting way to play. Either of those would be better than what I played. So bishop d2. So I no longer have any advantage. After this, black is fine. So black pushes with b5. And now I need to retreat the bishop. Bishop to c2 is really the only way to keep the even position. After my move, c takes b5, it switches and black has the advantage. So two moves in a row, and suddenly the tables have turned. But after this exchange, and the engine really wants me to go to c2 rather than b3. I went to b3, holding on to this pawn, and this is sometimes a good diagonal, but I guess c2 is just the better square in this position. At this point, black is already better. He's got this open file for his rook. He's going to be able to develop. He's going to get in the move d5 with tempo, and so developing his bishop is not going to be a problem. And so black has solved all his problems, and he's starting to look a little better. My pawn here is a little bit shaky. So black is better in this position. So just two moves, and the tables have turned. And then after d5, I make an unfortunate choice of putting my rook on e2. So rook to e1 was the way to try and keep a playable position. After rook e2, the evaluation has swung to a position that, it's a -1 evaluation from the chess engine, which in the hands of a good player can actually be a winning advantage when you have an advantage like that this early in the game. But it's unfortunate, this position of the rook, for two reasons. One is it invites the skewer along this diagonal, so gives him a tempo move with his light squared bishop. And the second reason is it blocks the natural square for my knight. So now my pieces are in each other's way, and that's the real problem here. Let's see, he went bishop to d6, getting this bishop on a good diagonal. I go a4. I was trying to try and open things up over here on the queen side, undermine his pawns, but he just pushes on with b4. Now, I wasn't so worried about this because I thought in the long run this will be an advantage, this passed pawn over here for me. And that is true. It could be an advantage in the long run, but I have to survive that far. And unfortunately, because of my rook on e2, I don't have any great squares for this knight. I hop back here, and I thought maybe I could round up this pawn, but he just coolly defends it. And my counterplay with the a pawn is just too far away to be any big threat. Let's see, I bring my rook over here to target his weak c pawn. He comes out with bishop to g4, hitting my rook, and I block, and then he just drops back to d7, defending. So he's forced a pawn weakness over here on me, and this plays into what goes on later in the game. I line up over here on the e file, trying to grab control of this file. He just goes queen f6, taking a look at my isolated pawn here, and I play bishop to e3 to defend the pawn. And at this point, the advantage, black's advantage, jumps suddenly from -1 to -2.5. So this maybe you could consider the losing move here, bishop e3, although black has had the advantage for quite a while now in this game. So the way I need to defend is with the queen. And if the knight tries to hop into f4, as happened in the game, we could get this exchange, bishop takes, queen takes, and then g3. I can kick the queen now, because the queen takes comes with this big threat on h2. I really need to deal with that. So g3, and now notice my queen is defending here and here, and so his queen just drops back to f6. And black is better, but maybe the win is not so quick. It's still a -1 position advantage to black, but not winning. But after bishop e3, it's actually all over. He plays rook f e8, but he could already play knight to f4. And the difference now is when I trade this off, and his queen comes here, threatening the check on h2, and I play g3. Now he can grab the d pawn with check, and clearly winning position for black. He plays rook f e8, maybe not the most precise move, but still keeping an edge. And then I'm sort of oblivious to this knight f4 threat. I drop my bishop back to f2, and then this is the final blow when his knight hops in with f4, although it was already losing. So there was just nothing I could do at this point. Nothing, no great moves. Let's say I trade out and then play queen to f1, trying to cover some of the squares that the knight might hop into. The knight was threatening to come into to d3 there, forking the rook and the queen. But now it can come into e2 check. And let's see, I've moved my king to h1. So there's a cool tactic here for black, and there's your good chance to put on your tactics hat. My opponent, he played in a very relaxed way, well, a natural way. He just took the material and went on to win the game with the extra material. He wins the exchange here. But he has a way to finish me off quickly in this position. So if you want to pause the video, see if you can spot it, it's kind of cool. Okay, the killer blow here is bishop takes h2. And the key idea is you're using the knight that's here on e2, which is blocking all the escape squares of the king. Very common idea, and setting up mating patterns. And now queen here is a undefendable mate. You can block for one move, but then the queen takes, and then that's checkmate. So that is a forced mate. So, but if you can't take the bishop, then this is also winning for black. You have to find another move. Say you move the rook, but then he's just going to bring his queen over to h6, and there's no defense to the attack along the open h file there. So right here, bishop takes h2 is the winning tactic. Anyway, he just took my rook, and this gives him a material advantage, and he keeps it the rest of the game. So there's not much to say. I try to keep my pieces active and look for counterplay, but well, this queen invasion was good. He's just going to simplify things, force me to defend and then trade queens, and and he just gets closer and closer to this winning endgame, which we will see on the board in a little bit. Forces another trade there with his bishop, and now it's just a rook versus bishop endgame, and my pawn, which is my hoped-for advantage of the a-pawn, is still miles away from queening, and his rook is starting to mop up my pawns, which I can't defend with my bishop, which is limited to defending the dark squares. So it's game over at this point, and I resigned. But an interesting game. Hope you guys enjoyed this. Leave me any comments you have in the section below, and I will see you again soon. Bye.